Welcome back to Greatness Valley Lifestyle and Prayer Cafe, where faith meets lifestyle. So today we'll be looking at Jacob 1.5. I hope you watched Jacob Part 1. Now this is a continuation, and we want to ask one question. What would you have done when the truth finally came out? Think about that and get ready for Jacob 1.5. With all the drama and the frustration and the pain and all of this, I love that Jacob's story did not end in grief. Just unending grief. When the brothers discovered later on that Joseph was alive in Egypt, as I said before, we'll catch a little bit more of that later in another episode, they told their father, Jacob, who made up his mind to mourn forever, they told him that Joseph was alive in Egypt. And this turned his mourning into unimaginable joy. Can you comprehend the look on his face after mourning for years? And these same evil boys or sons, now grown men, obviously, with their own families. Those same sons, God is something else, isn't he? Those same sons who brought the bad news that Joseph is dead and really faked the whole thing, but of course it was a real situation for Joseph. They sold him into slavery. They planned it out carefully. They covered his clothing in blood and brought it back to show his father as evidence of his death. Of course, they didn't have the tools we have today to check to see if this is animal's blood or human blood. It was his clothes. So the likelihood, the most logical thing to do was to accept it. That was the clothing that he was wearing. So, whatever they said must have been the truth. Plus, he didn't think that his 10 sons would be so diabolical to invent that kind of movie that we get to watch today. Well, at least it seems like a movie, but it was real life for them. So I'm just saying that to say, now here we have these evil sons bringing the opposite report to their father. Joseph is alive. Look how God used those same evil boys to be the messenger of the good news that Joseph is now alive in Egypt. Do you see how the story is going to come out? Because who, except for God who sees all things, who else could say that they were first-hand witnesses to what happened? The evidence was brought, the clothing covered in blood, right? And Joseph, who was supposed to be dead, is alive. So he knows what really happened. And the 10 brothers, they know what really happened. So can you see this story taking a different turn? God is God above all gods. No matter what, all things work together for the good of those who love Jesus, who love God. Oh my. So anyway, another lesson, a lesson of hope that we can really take away here. That there is joy that awaits us beyond the period of mourning. Our stories may be different. Our grief may be really personal and personable, and we explore and navigate differently. But there's similarity in pain, that we can comprehend Jacob's pain because we know what that feels like. So we can also have hope. No matter what, we can have hope. The outcome, it may look totally different than Jacob's outcome, but it can still be a positive one. So there is tremendous hope in the resurrection when Jesus comes again. Yes? There will be a grand reunion in heaven. Yes, there was a grand reunion in Jacob's story when he was reunited with his boy, his son, his adult son, Joseph. But I said boy because when he left him, when he was told he was dead, he was just a boy. So picking up where he left off, he's picking up his boy. He's meeting with his boy. No matter how tall he grew or how he looked, that was his boy, his son. Can you imagine that elderly man looking in the eyes of his son, knowing how many years he mourned? Can you imagine the conflict in Jacob's heart? Wondering, are these boys lying to me? Are they telling the truth? How is this possible? What really happened? How could he end up in Egypt? What happened? So how did his clothes get covered in blood? Whose blood? Or where did all of this come from? How was he kidnapped by the Egyptians? Can you imagine what was going on in Jacob's mind? Do you think those boys eventually just told Jacob what happened? Do you think they told him? Or do you think they just kept the whole thing and just leave it as is, as if somehow he was kidnapped by the Egyptians or wandered away and, showed up in Egypt? Wonder about that. But we don't want to ruin the reunion. It's a beautiful occasion. And so you too can have that reunion when Jesus comes and you get to see your loved ones again. And so until then, I do encourage you to keep on leaning on Jesus and walk in his footsteps of hope. You've got hope. Your story, like Jacob's story, continues. The grief chapter is just that, a chapter. And even if there's grief on every chapter and in every paragraph, God is still in control of the entire book of your life. He's still writing your story for you. You may be walking through the storylines in time, but God is doing a whole lot more beyond time, even into eternity. Don't give up. What would you do here in Jacob's situation? What would you do? What would you say if you could just be right there watching the whole thing? What would you say? Would you go to Egypt with these same boys, sons who were liars, and that's just a mild part of their whatever, but would you even believe them and pack your things and say, okay, I'll go. I'll go. I mean, it's easy to go because hope propels you to want something better. Hope propels you to want to see a brighter day. Hope propels you that there's joy on the other side of this grief. What would you do? Share your comments in the chat. So we learned about the role of divine intervention and even healing. Okay, because this reunion, this is nothing short of divine intervention. God will always bring justice in every situation because he's God. Jacob's patience, despite not knowing that he had a future to meet with his son, remember what he said? Leave me alone. I will never stop mourning until I join my son in the grave. And here it is that his son was not in the grave. He was living in Egypt. So interesting that God didn't allow him to die before he saw his son alive. God kept him. Isn't God good? God kept him. And so we get to see the beauty of his reliance on God anyway. And God kept him. Jacob's journey through grief to joy encapsulates the soul's profound resilience and the miracles that faith in God can bring in our lives. Let this ancient story be a candle in the dark for those walking the shadowed paths of grief today. May we find assurance in the timeless truth that God is near to the brokenhearted and sustains those who mourn. The journey of faith is not easy. Just because we serve God does not mean that we won't mourn. It does not mean that we won't be deceived by our close family or friends or whomever. It means that the nuances of life will not be avoided because we're Christians or non-Christians or whatever it is that we believe. We don't get exempted. This is real. It's a very real part of life, and I just want to encourage you to hope in God, because he is the God who sees all things and works everything out for your good, even though the situation seems terrible in the moment. There's a bigger picture. God, eternity, humans, time. We are confined to time. God is bigger than time. Okay? So give time its own time. Are you hearing me? Give time its own time. People say time heals all wounds. No, God heals all wounds over time. Yes? So give time its time. Thank you so much for joining us today. If this message touched your heart in any way, consider subscribing for more insights and more content. Remember, we have part 2 coming up. This is a series, and you've got to stay tuned to find out more about Joseph, more about this really powerful story of humanity in the face of despair, how we respond to our crisis as it relates to grief. I do pray that your journey through grief will be met with unexpected blessings and strength from the same God who strengthened Jacob. Don't forget to watch part 2, titled Grief, Power, Deception, and Lies, the untold story of Joseph. This is the brother who was supposed to be dead, now in Egypt. Find out how that story unfolded when Joseph came face to face with his brothers who sold him into slavery and told their father he was dead. Through guided lessons, practical exercises, and supportive resources, you'll learn how to process your emotions, let go of the past, and rise stronger than ever before. No matter how deep the hurt, there's always a way to heal. Join me on this journey of transformation, and together we can turn your pain into power. Sign up today. GreatnessValleyLifestyle.com has the resources you need for a brighter tomorrow. The healing journey begins with you. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more tips and inspiration on your path to healing. We want to remind you that we have resources to help you navigate through grief. We have a practical guide, How to Step Out of Grief and Bloom. This is for anyone and everyone, whether you're grieving or not. It will prepare you for that time or to help someone who is. This is packed with stories of those who went through grief, the various stages in grief, biblical text that helps you to navigate in terms of God's divine providence and how He sees you and the fact that He is with you. So it really helps you in the day-to-day moments to understand what's happening to you or what is going to happen to you, so you can be proactive and understand it even before it happens. And we also have the Grief Journal, How to Step Out of Grief and Bloom, same name or title as the practical guide. And this is a prompted journal. That means it has all the prompts. It tells you what to do. It asks the questions. It reminds you of all the different activities that you can do, and it gives you examples. It gives you pages so that you can write. It gives you different activities. You can write letters and all of the different things that you need to do to help you as you walk through grief. I assure you, you will not regret having these resources. Check them out on Amazon.com, and the link will also be in the description of this video. Have a wonderful day.